Said the writer to the publication, do you see what I see? The future bestseller sensation. Do you see what I see? I wrote this book, and it's the best thing. It will make readers want to sing. It will make readers want to sing. Said the publisher to the writer, do you smell what I smell? As he went to grab his lighter. Do you smell what I smell? This book is crap, your praise is all unearned. It's a manuscript that should be burned. It's a manuscript that must be burned. Said the writer to the publisher, can you write what I write? Said the writer to the publisher, can you write what I write? My book is great, and all my words are art, and your words are nothing but a fart. And your words are nothing but a fart.
Good job, David.
I don't know if it'll match up with the karaoke very well, but we'll see how it goes.
We'll find out.
We'll find out.
On my end,
it
actually sounded fairly in line.
Cool.
Just
because
pitchy.
I kept posting.
Cool. By the way, listeners, we have a guest.
well.
We'll answer that, I guess.
I was about to say, who gets to say welcome, fellow nerds this time? I don't remember.
I feel like you've said it a lot, so... Wait, no, I've said it way more than you. You say it!
Welcome, fellow nerds, to
Yes.
another episode of The Ritwit, the show where us two twits talk about writting and have no shame in parodying anything as long as we think it's creative.
We think. Who knows if it actually is?
Who knows if it actually lands?
Yeah.
Anyways,
Who knows?
how are you,
Anyway.
Donald?
Yeah, I'm good. My butt's feeling a lot better than last week. Thank you. Thank you for
Month,
asking.
you mean?
From last month.
month, you mean?
Dang it! I always do that.
You always do this. This podcast is not as frequent.
Well, if only it was. We'd probably get a lot more downloads if it was, but oh well.
If it was, we might have more downloads, but we'd also run out of topics already.
Who knows? Anyways. Okay, so...
You could go more in depth.
we could do multi-parters.
Fair.
Oh, jeez. Start running jokes. Oh, wait, we already have some. Moving on.
Yeah, we could do more multipliers. Anyways, so how are you, though, real quick, before we introduce our guest co-host for this month?
Yeah, you've already heard our guest host chime in, so we'll get to that. But I'm, honestly, I felt a lot better. I woke up this morning, and there were, like, major frogs just taking up residence in the canal that is my throat.
Oh, God.
So, as you can probably tell, this is not great. I'm going to be sucking cough drops, like, all the time.
I can see some gross mucousy legs dripping out of your mouth as we speak. Man.
Anyway, I will be sucking down cough drops throughout the show.
Yeah.
Hopefully that doesn't bother you too much, listeners. But just so you're aware, it is out there.
Right.
Anyways, without further ado, please, Donald, our guest host.
Yes, please welcome a college friend of both of ours. We had a college friend of mine before, and now we're going to have a college friend of both of ours. This is...
Which means the next is my turn, right?
Yeah, bring one of your pure college friends along to be next. Please welcome Miss Christina... What's her last name? Franklin. All right. I was gonna say more. I'm like, that's her maiden name. Welcome, Mrs. Christina Franklin.
We're so professional on this show.
Well, to be fair, you knew me with my last name of Moore in college, so...
But I guess it always left me wanting more.
You've known me longer with the last name Moore than Franklin.
You know, You know, the sad thing is, listeners might realize we've had now 2 Christinas on the show, and so how do we keep them separate? Honestly, it's not that hard. The last names are all different letters. Maiden name, married name, they're all different letters. So you'd think it'd be easier. We still get it confused.
Right.
Yeah, it makes things quite entertaining.
Well, it's kind of funny. Both of the Christinas we've had have also are married, and they have different maiden names that I've also mentioned on the show now. I need to know more single ladies. I need to get Beyonce going here and just say all the single ladies.
Was waiting for it.
All the single ladies, all the single ladies, all the single ladies, just lift your hands up.
Yeah, but they'll be able to call. They'll be like, I'm not trying to do it in a creepy way, ladies, I swear.
Whoa. Sorry, that's about the end of my musical.
Anyways.
Today. But anyways.
All right, so when we have a guest host here, we like to ask them what makes them qualified to be on the show. So, Mrs. Franklin, what makes you qualified to be on the Ritwit?
Well, besides the fact that my degree is actually in languages and linguistics.
Yeah, see, again, you're already more qualified than Matt David, so... Who's a music major? Nah, it's fine.
Sigh.
Hey, that requires writing too, both in the lyrics and the
Of
music.
some sort, yes. Yeah, I guess that's fine.
Well, okay. I mean, music is its own language, I suppose, if you want to make that argument.
It actually
but,
is.
I mean, come on.
I'd argue it's more of a
love
sub-language.
Language
but,
arts. I'd argue that I'm better than some English majors that I know. Not all, but some.
Well, really, which ones? No, I'm sorry. You should have seen them. Was it last night? I kept saying stuff and you kept correcting it, and I was like, "Hey, why don't you publish a book next?"
How do you know he's not working on it?
He probably is. No, his ego's too big. If he was, he'd immediately let me know.
Oh, so that's the card you want to play?
Wait, no, that's not true. You're right. You're also
honestly-
really sneaky. So
Can you honestly say that
I
you wouldn't
can
let
be
us
really
know right
sneaky.
away?
Depends. If
I mean-
I'm working on one, I probably wouldn't. That I have one published, I probably would.
I mean, not to go into specifics because of personal reasons. You did keep a secret from me for a really long time, David.
Yes, I did. I am aware of that.
So-
You'll never let me get over it. So,
In case
anyways,
in case
what will we
listeners-
rip off from this month?
In case listeners are curious, he's a Nazi and he didn't let me know.
Oh!
Until later. No, he's definitely not. So,
Sure, because I'm a Nazi living in Japan. That's a great plan, guys. Anyway,
I mean, they were allies back in the. Okay, no, sorry. This is
Moving on.
this joke needs to be
moving on.
aborted
Sorry,
now.
what are we gonna rip off from
To our
this
regular
month?
segments.
Yes. What will we rip off from next this month? Well, I can't talk today.
Which I'd already said, but go ahead. You go first.
I will
time.
go first. Thank you very much, David. So I rewatched the Disney cult classic Atlantis: The Lost Empire on Netflix. I rewatched it. I've already seen it. I've seen it a lot, but I haven't seen it in a long time, so I watched it again. You guys have seen it, right?
Oh, of course.
I've been
Love
very,
it.
very long since I saw it.
It's so good. I love it.
It is a great movie.
But I've already done Titan AE and Sinbad, The Legend of the Seven Seas for earlier episodes on earlier episodes from What Will I Rip Off from this month. So if I do Treasure Planet and Road to El Dorado, it'll be the big quintessecta of major animated bombs from the early 2000s.
I'm amazed you haven't done Road to El Dorado yet, given how obsessive you are over the one.
Okay, we don't need to tell people.
Okay, which
that.
character?
You know. Listeners, in case you're curious, it's actually Tulio. I can't get over that scraggly little beard. No. All right, so.
No, he's just kidding, but I won't tell you the real one.
Oh, it's not like there's a lot of options.
This is very true.
It's,
Pretty much give us 5 guesses and we've got it.
people can like Just Like a Rabbit. I can like this one. All right, no.
All right, there's your hint, listeners. Go do some snooping.
Uh,
Anyway,
All right, so in Atlantis, I really like the characters. I love the comic book style animation. I love the music. James Newton Howard did so well with so many memorable themes, and even the trailer was just pretty much nothing but the themes, and it was so atmospheric and whatever. The music was, but more importantly, I really like the atmosphere of it overall and the sheer creativity of it. Atlantis feels like an alien civilization in this movie, even though it's Earth-based, but it's purely due to the look, mood, sound, and tone of it all. Even the sound effects for how the technology does it. It does that distinctive when it turns on. It's cooler sounding than that. Add a real flagrant or whatever the term is.
I believe flare is the term you're looking for.
The one that makes the sound seem all like, I don't know. But,
The warping?
so, yeah, that kind of thing. But, like, and they even made a fully functional language for the Atlanteans with their own grammar and syntax and everything. And it has a Wikipedia page. Search Atlantean on Wikipedia and you will find the language for that movie.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's... But,
to
like,
be fair, I think that's far from the only language that's been contrived called Atlantean, but, you know.
well, I know, but, like, it's the main notable one. Like, I think there's not really another Atlantean that's a fully functional language that's on Wikipedia, as far as I know. So...
Not that I've done the
especially
research,
a lot of
so.
them, they probably just use Greek, so for whenever they have to talk, because it was a Greek myth originally. So
Yeah.
This is
You know,
very
father
true.
of Greek mythology, if you will.
So even if
But,
it wasn't
like-
Greek, it was derived from Greek.
right, but this one they made like their own full language that's like a mix of like Greek, but also like Arabic, Mayan. It just sounds like a bunch of exotic languages just mushed together, and like there's like a whole grammar.
Which is a
for
lot harder in practice, isn't it, our resident linguist?
It's actually quite fascinating how one language can influence
No, I'm
another.
sure fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you look at English, it's a hodgepodge, right?
Well, no
Oh, yeah.
kidding.
So many French words that most people don't know that are in our language. Like anything that begins with CIV or CIT is French in origins. Like city, civic, civil, citrus probably. I don't know.
Well, then if you just think
Well, I
about
don't know about
Spanish,
citrus.
there's the Arabic influence on Spanish.
Right, exactly.
True.
And there's Romance languages and Germanic languages. So, anyways, but like for even though the Atlantis scenes in this movie are about half the movie or less, it creates such an impact, this Atlantis does, that I could see a whole world in it with like its own customs, traditions, and creatures. And that's why I like to rip off something like that, getting so involved in a world, even if that world isn't the entire focus of the story. Like even if it's like other characters exploring it briefly, they really get into it. Like,
So different from just, needing an encyclopedia to explain your story. You're talking like an environment that majorly factors in without, overtaking everything
right,
else.
and it's not like that the main character is someone that's just from. It's not like Lord of the Rings, which is also a really cool world, but it's something a little different, where it's like the characters aren't just in this world; they visit it, and it's something that's really still you can see how alien it is, not just from the perspective of the viewer, but the perspective of the characters in it. So.
It's an outsider view.
Yeah, exactly. But like, also, I really love the characters in this movie. Like, my favorite's the demolition guy and all the deadpan like rambling he does. It's like, what do you have in there? Oh, the usual things: dynamite, cherry bombs, notepads, fuses, wicks, glue, and paper clips, big ones. or
Mine are Kita and Mole.
yeah, I do like Mole, and Kita's nice too. It's like, but I love that guy's ramblings. Like, could you blow it up? Oh, I could if I had about 200 of these. But the problem is I only have like 10, plus some of my own, couple of cherry bombs, road flare. Like, something about it. It's just so funny. Like, he just goes on.
Probably his delivery, honestly.
It's
Yeah.
really his delivery, because like the lines themselves, they're not really like. Apparently, the actor improvised a lot of it, and they just left it in when he was recording. It's like, I
that's
will
always
think
fun.
of you every single day, Monday through Friday. Like Sunday, I gotta take Sunday off, and maybe for some things, August, I'm gonna take August off. It's great. Anyways, that's what I'm gonna rip off. Not that specifically, but that's just a fun anecdote.
If he has a character like it, don't be surprised, listeners.
Of course.
Anyway.
All right. So, what about you, David?
All right. Well, I have officially reached a wall that I've watched so much tokusatsu.
Well, whose fault is that?
Power Ranger-esque shows. I'm branching off into some anime. There's one scene in a mecha anime called Combattler V, not the Roman numeral. It's literally pronounced V. Where the marksman of the team, not in the robot. This is actually, he's out of the robot at the moment.
Oh.
He flings his pistol to get a better aim on his former mentor who is being controlled by the villain. Of
Right.
course, he doesn't want to kill his mentor, so he has to aim for this control device planted on the guy's neck, literally right next to the hostage he took, and that happens to be the only
better
female
not
robot
flinch
pilot.
when you better have direct
Exactly.
aim.
Right, and so, like, what he does is that rather than use a sniper rifle and risk the mentor, like, popping the girl standing next to him, he
no.
flings his pistol in the air, then uses his sniper rifle to fire a shot that hits the pistol's trigger in midair, which fires a bullet that perfectly grazes the control device off the guy's neck.
Oh,
it was almost sensual. It was so cool.
Oh, anime. It exists.
Not to say that I could do it without being pretty direct, but I'd love to rip something like that off, where this guy has to make
like
an
an
impossible
insane
shot
move.
using multiple guns. That was so awesome. Oh my god. Oh, and I did watch some more tokusatsu. Not like there's that much left in the series I want to see. I also read a book.
Wait,
Unfortunately,
you read books a lot more
yeah,
than I
I know.
do, so that's fine.
That's not noteworthy. But I didn't find something in particular to mention that's new. I did to explain that a little bit more. I read another book in the Oregon Files, which I
thought we were gonna say Oregon Trail for a
second. I mentioned on an
Did
earlier
you die of
podcast,
dysentery?
so-
No. Okay.
No, I never made it all the way to the promised land.
Oh,
Anyway,
no, you should have lowered your... You should have not... crossing the rivers is difficult in that game. Oh, sorry, why would you actually?
it's very difficult, and I ran out of caravans and all the other junk that Oregon Trail.
Well,
Anyways, not
classic
Oregon
rookie
Trail,
mistake.
Donald.
Okay. Well, that's a shame.
Not Oregon Trail.
Okay.
Anyway, but because, I already mentioned it before, and there wasn't anything, new and exciting in there that I just had to take out, I figure it wasn't really worth mentioning here. So
Well, of course.
there's that.
Well, that sounds good.
We have the pleasure of a guest host today. So
Yes.
because our guest host happens to be more qualified than I am, per Donald,
Well,
let's let her
all
have
right.
a say, too.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you got, Christina?
Alright, so it's not exactly something very recent. It's something more like within the last 3 months.
Yes.
Which, to be fair, if this is the only time you've shown up on the podcast so far, it's fair game.
This is fair.
I mean, yeah, I'd say so.
So, the last time I watched the movie The Proposal, the first thing that drew me
Sandra
in
Bullock.
even deeper, something that clicked on me, was the way that they portray the thin line between love and hate.
I mean, it makes sense. They both require strong emotions towards someone or something. It's just which end of the line does it go on? That's why the opposite of love isn't hate. The opposite of love is apathy.
I believe you
Exactly.
mean side of the line, not end of the line, but yes.
Well,
So-
whatever the term is.
So in this movie, it happens to be between boss and assistant. So I'm
Nice.
wanting to try to explore this concept in other situations.
Ah.
So you mean other relationships as opposed to the boss-assistant dynamic?
Yes.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
there's certainly times where I love my computer almost all the time, but then it does something wrong and compromises the entire system. I hate you so much right now. So,
Yeah, I
So-
had one of those earlier where I wanted to throw my laptop.
yep, ain't it the
Just
best?
don't, because it's too valuable.
Yeah, no kidding.
Sometimes
So-
it feels like the piece of crap hardware deserves it, but
So anyway, basically it's just mainly showing the moment where the characters cross the line from love into hate or from hate into love that I want to zero in on. I especially want to look at the opposite of what this movie shows. I want to look at the love into hate aspect
oh
of
yeah,
it. Because you usually
you think-
see hate into love.
right.
Sure.
So I kind of want to see the cross
or
of
the
that.
Arnold and Helga situation.
I love you, and yet I hate you. I love you, and yet I hate you.
The Arnold and Helga situation where she completely puts on this face that she absolutely despises him, but has a shrine in her closet.
That's gonna be a real healthy relationship in the future.
Yeah, exactly. No, but when I think of something like that happening, I think there's got to be some catalyst for it.
Right.
And so that would be it. I mean, this is not me, but if it were, I try and hone in on what situation can I contrive to make that realistic.
Of course.
Right.
So, just my 2 cents.
Because, I mean, you have to show right where the switch is without actually saying that the switch happened.
Right. Don't tell. Show. Yeah.
Not that that's been terribly effective for me in my writing, but that's another story.
I mean, your problem isn't so much that you tell. The problem is that you just tell with a lot of words.
Oh, you mean he's rather verbose?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, I
Wow,
suppose.
that shouldn't surprise anybody who's known me for longer.
Some of the
than,
best writers
2
are
hours.
verbose. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Continue for billions of paragraphs.
To be fair, I think anybody who knows me longer than 2 hours probably realizes this.
Well, of course.
So,
Speaking of verbose, I'm actually, or I guess the opposite of it, I'm actually surprised how quickly we got through this What Will We Rip Off. It's only been 20 minutes. Usually, at this point, like, I'm still working on mine or you're still working on yours. We're so efficient, the three of us now. Let's keep going. I know I'm ruining it now by talking about it now, but let's just keep going. So, you guys ready to move on? I
was
love
about to
being
say,
hypocritical.
you're defeating the purpose.
Yeah.
Anyways, what we at the Ritwit have writ. Go for it, Donald.
Okay, sounds good. Hey guys, I don't think I said anything. I think I might have mentioned it, or I think I forgot. But Megazoic, The Hunted Ones, is published. Oh my god! I am
There
a
aren't enough
three-time
exclamation
author.
points to describe that.
What?
There aren't enough exclamation points to describe that adequately, are
I
there?
am a three-time author. How many times have you guys been authors? No, I'm sorry. That was. Sorry, I don't mean to. I'm actually.
I'm wounded.
Well, I was gonna say it depends on if you count poetry, but
Oh.
Well, and I think you'd beat me on that too, Christina. So
Wow,
I'm
you
still
are
the one
so
who's wounded here.
unqualified for this show, David. What do we even have you for now? Sorry.
And who did you
I get
dedicate
so-
book one to?
I get so aggressive on this show. I don't know what. I'm normally okay. So Christina, this Christina here, sometimes has a nickname for me called. Like she said once, I was a big teddy bear, and I think it's all right to say that. If it's not, I can edit it out, Christina.
All right. Yeah.
But
Your jurisdiction.
But but yet on the show, I am a bully. I don't know what it is. I'll let the fame of podcasting get to me, I guess.
The fame of having your own work self-published is apparently so great.
I mean, except it's not just that, because if
I wanted to be mean, I would bring up a certain man with a name that starts with C and P. But
oh, Chris Pine.
No.
Charlotte.
Although his first name is Christopher.
No, I know what you're talking about.
His first name is
silly.
Christopher. Anyway.
Okay.
I am aware. But anyway.
All right, basically that's it, though. I published the third Megazoic. Buy on Amazon.com. And then soon, the fourth one will be out. Did we ever tell you, Christina, that we have a foghorn on the show now?
no, you didn't.
You haven't caught up on our episodes.
We do it whenever there's something in the future that it's not a cheap plug yet because it's not yet there, but it's something we're planning on doing.
It can't be a plug, and so it's just like, oh, hey, here's a spoiler alert.
Okay, I'm kind of glad you don't have it right now.
Yeah, so we added a foghorn sound effect. So
Wait, hold on. You're saying it'll be out soon? You aren't even done writing it, right? Are you?
Well,
I'm not.
I was gonna ask, okay, how soon is soon? Because soon is generally used to write
next
within,
year
next
at
month.
some point. Anytime, anywhere between January 1st, probably not, and December 31st.
Oh, that so narrows it
January
down.
1st, huh? Less than a month from now. Yeah, right.
That so narrows it down.
Okay, fine. How about
Exactly.
no time, but probably not anytime.
Second half of 2019.
Okay,
Maybe.
fine. Here, I'm going to pinpoint it exactly here. I'm going to hold myself to this on November
jeez. Yeah, right.
November 35th. 2014. 2018. Dang it.
14.
That's all right. November 35th.
Are you sure you don't want to make it November 30 or November 35th? If you're gonna do that,
November 35th. I could. In the middle of the great holiday of Decemberween.
I've got it. You'll manage it by January 1st, 20,035. Got it.
Surely by that point, yeah. Anyways, that's basically all I've got.
Oh my
Buy it,
gosh.
review it,
So, yeah.
please.
He's asking nicely,
Please,
listeners. I mean, you can't deny that face that you can't even see, right?
All right, that's all I've got. Dave, what do you got?
Well,
quite the switch.
I mean, I'm busy unwinding from Nano,
Of
so
course.
not much. I tell you what, if you looked at it on a graph, the writing production that I manage spikes super hard in November,
Oh, yeah.
and then dwindles away to almost zero the rest of the year.
No,
It's kind of sad.
I think we've talked about that on the show that you don't really write a lot other than November, but you really make up for it in November.
'Tis true. 'Tis true. A couple of things here and there. I do have a monthly article for the Town magazine that's
Nice.
published here, so I obviously had to write that article first in English, and then I had to try and translate it into Japanese because
that
it's
sounds
published
fun.
in Japanese, of course, which means that my supervisor gets to, look over it and say, "Oh, you idiot, we don't say that," stuff like that. But
Of course.
and a couple of other things to stuff for some. There's a couple of other things to stuff to prep for some classes that I'm involved with. But other than that, I've been kind of away from the keyboard as far as writing purposes are concerned. So rather than hashtag cheap plug my own products, I'll mention that I'm going to use the the new-ish feature on NaNoWriMo's website. They have added, I think in the last couple of years, I just noticed it this year, they have a way to make like intermediate goals.
Ooh.
So during the next few months, rather than 50,000 words over a month, which my lifestyle, unfortunately, outside of 1 month a year can't really support, I can say, oh, well, I want to write 3,000 words this week. I want to write 1 episode this month, kind of a thing. You can set yourself individual goals like that. And if I can get onto that, then I take away some of the excuses.
Nice. Good luck with
Especially
that.
considering I've got a bunch of previously mentioned Power Ranger-esque fix that I've been working on.
Of course.
I could certainly make progress if I simply took the time to do it.
Well, all that tokusatsu ripping off has to go somewhere.
Exactly. It's my bread and butter, man.
Yep.
And for some good old handwriting, I dovetailed a little bit with my musical exploits. The original Friedrich Schiller poem that Beethoven used in his Ninth Symphony, the final movement of which we know as Ode to Joy, but obviously has a bunch of other uses as well, along with the translation, just so I could understand the words better when I have to play it later this month.
Wait, so you're saying you took Ode to Joy and translated into Japanese? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is I looked at the original German poem, transcribed it by hand, and wrote an English translation for the purpose of understanding what they're singing.
I mean, that counts as writing, I'd say. I mean, everything counts as writing.
What is writing? We never had that answer. Anyway,
Any
also,
creative
because
work
I'm not
used specifically for this podcast is the official definition, I'd say.
apparently, well, it's pretty broad. But anyway, also because I don't have a cheap product to plug of my own, buy the Hunted ones available now on Amazon.
Yeah, please buy my book. I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, I don't know. I'm
You
really
have
selling
confidence in
myself.
it. We'll see if the readers.
It's
Hey,
pretty
I
good.
have-
I don't know.
Hey, I haven't had a chance to read the second one yet. I'm getting ready to, but I can tell you
Yep.
the first one's pretty awesome. So.
Oh well, thanks.
I'm partial to the first one mostly because of the dedication, but that's me. So.
Yeah. Of course you are. Anyways, it's all about you. No.
Mister, I'm a bully on this show. Wow, you're not making it all
I'm
about
also
you.
a hypocrite, so at least I acknowledge it. Okay, so what about you, Mrs. Franklin?
Alright, so a little different from what I'm planning on ripping off. I've actually
Of course.
mentioned this, I think, to both of you, but at least to one of you before. Is
Yeah.
that I'm working on making a spin-off of Cinderella.
You're focusing exclusively on the mice. No.
Actually,
That would be
I
interesting.
hadn't thought of that. I'm gonna have to actually take a look at that.
It's the hidden story of Gus,
Depends-
the big fat one.
It depends how far you've gotten into making your spin-off. If you've already started, then there's no point in changing focal characters now.
I'm not too far in, but that's because I'm trying to figure out what way I want to spin it. So it's a storyline that's so overdone,
Right.
but there's got to be a way to make it new again. So I'm still in the beginning stages of trying to figure out how it'll work, but I still have
Right.
a few ideas for how to make it work, such as inverting the traditional characters' genders,
Of
making
course,
it
have
a
a
princess.
have a
doing
Cinderella.
Oh my gosh, there's a fun story about that if you guys want to hear
I think
it.
I've heard of it called Cinderella, right?
Well, Cinderella, no, not explicitly that idea, but when I was in high school, I took a theater class, and we had a project for that as like our final project. It was called A Fractured Fairy Tale. In the group that I was in, we did Cinderella, except we did a gender swap. So it was a princess and Cinderella, and I will not spoil all of that particular fractured fairy tale, which was a hoot to do, even if it was slightly embarrassing to act in. But there were two scenes that I'm particularly proud of. The first is that I was involved in a choreographed lightsaber fight.
What kind of Cinderella was this?
It was awesome. You should have seen it. But anyway, no. So there were two sets of parents. One of the original Cinderella's original parents, and then I believe the wicked stepmother and her husband.
Wasn't her husband
And so,
Cinderella's dad?
It should be, right? But anyway, so for some reason, I and a good friend of mine at the time were doing a lightsaber fight. And literally, we had, I think we counted, there were like 15 different strikes that we did. And, you know, when we started practicing this, we started really slow because we wanted to make sure it was right. By the time we got to our actual, like, when the time we got to the actual stage run, we managed that entire fight in 7 seconds flat.
Nice. I'm still just wondering...
It was super fast. It was so cool.
Lightsabers. Like, so does that mean, like, at the end...
No, they were not actually lightsabers.
So does that mean at the end, when they're trying to find out the feet, like, these aren't the feet you're looking for?
No, we should have used that. That would have been great.
Oh, jeez.
No, but anyway, these were actually, I want to say they were pretty thick dowel rods. I'm not 100% sure now because it's been so long, but what they were, we solidly painted them. So the handles were black, and then the blades were a different color. And I think
Yoda was the fairy godmother.
No, I had the green one.
To the ball, I must take
had
you.
the red one.
Sorry,
there you go.
I'm derailing your story, which
Star
is derailing
Wars
Christina's
story. Star Wars version of Cinderella, go. It's never been done.
So,
you've got plenty of opportunities, right, Christina?
There is actually a movie that's been made of a gender swap of Cinderella,
really?
and it aired on Nickelodeon years ago.
Nice.
It was the movie Rags.
Never heard of it until now, but okay, I believe it.
It's actually pretty good, but that's one option. Or there's putting it in a new setting.
The future.
Well, I mean, Cinderella Story with Hilary Duff and Chad Michael Murray, I think, did that one.
I'm still partial to
they
Sydney
did,
White.
But then there have been a bunch of other...
That's not
There have been a bunch of
I know.
other Cinderella Story movies made, though. There was another Cinderella Story with Selena Gomez and Drew Seeley.
Oh, that's right. The recent-ish one.
There was Cinderella
hadn't
Story
seen.
Once Upon a Song.
There's the one I like, which is Ever After, which is just basically what if it was historical.
True. And then there is a Cinderella Story If the Shoe Fits, which has... I don't
Lovely
know
title there.
what the guy's name is, but I know that
I'm not the
I
one
know
qualified
that
to tell you.
the
So.
Cinderella in that one is Sophia Carson.
Oh.
I've seen
Who's that?
I've seen every single one of those. Okay.
Hey,
you're a big Cinderella Story fan. Okay.
Well, my favorite
Nothing
is
wrong with
Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. The I think it's 1990.
Oh yeah, the one with Whitney Houston.
Yes, with Brandy, Whitney Houston,
very-
Victor Garber.
A very, very progressive thing for the time. It had an interracial couple where Cinderella was black and the prince was Asian.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. So then there's the idea of writing it from the viewpoint of one of the other characters, like from the prince's point of view,
Or the mice.
or one of the stepsisters, or even the stepmother.
You mean the stepbrothers?
Ooh.
You said
If-
gender swap, so you mean the stepbrothers?
Well, I'm saying
it's gender
or,
swap.
but doing a combination, yes, I have considered
Two
that.
gimmicks, yeah.
But I have not thought
Never
of
enough
doing it
gimmicks.
from the point of view of the mice. That might actually be kind of fascinating.
What if they have their own little ball?
That's partly because I like Jacques and Gus Gus. They're so cute.
Gus, what's his name?
Wrong
Right,
with
yeah,
that.
not
They're
just
probably the cutest rodents you'll ever run into in real life.
Hey,
Meanwhile-
I have a squirrel in my house. He's pretty cute.
As long as it's not the killer squirrel from Hastings, I'm good.
The black ones?
Oh,
No,
jeez.
it's fine.
Okay, those weren't killer squirrels. They were kind of cool, though, all black.
Oh,
One
no,
of them
no, no.
charged down my car when I was
This-
driving on the road. I was really convinced it would flip it over if I kept going.
Oh, no, this was a squirrel.
What do you think it is? The freaking scooper squirrel? Come on!
Okay,
Sorry, we're gonna
this
say
was a squirrel who This was actually a red squirrel, not a black squirrel.
Oh.
All right.
I was walking from Taylor Hall to the student union because I needed to get
these
food.
different places in this college of
By the way,
Hastings
and all of these
listeners.
place names that all these place names are specific to the college we went to, so don't mind. You don't need to have much more explanation than that.
So anyway, I was
ahead.
walking on the path to get lunch,
Yeah.
and on the tree hanging over the sidewalk, there was this squirrel, claws out, death gripping the bottom of this branch, head cocked to the side, giving me the evil eye like it was going to drop on my face and attack me. Oh my gosh, that
I can
face is-
speak from experience that squirrel claws hurt. So, wow.
Well, I mean, you don't think of squirrels who are darting down trees, butt first when they come down.
I mean,
right?
have you seen Ice Age? They can bring down mountains.
Well, that was a saber-toothed
That's
squirrel.
because he was desperate for an acorn.
And that was a saber-toothed squirrel, not a regular squirrel.
I guess that's true. Yeah. So.
Good grief. Now, for the person saying we were so brief about our segments,
Well,
we've
actually-
already stretched on quite a ways.
Well, I was going to say, one setting update you could do for Cinderella, instead of going, like, in modern times, how about you go further back, like ancient Egypt or something? Or Greece?
Wow. Take her to the sarcophagus.
Stone Age!
What, have
It's a
Cleopatra
mammoth
as the princess?
I don't know.
And then you do a gender swap, and it's this, like, random peasant boy who's fallen for
Random
Cleopatra
slave.
or something.
Oh, yeah.
A slave, even better. Work that dynamic, too. Hey,
In
you
the
can
middle
get
of their
you can get the
slave-
boss-assistant dynamic, the line between love and hate, and put it in that story.
and then feature mice in there,
Tying
too.
things together. Anyways.
Okay, so I think that does it for our usual segments. So,
I'd hope so.
shall we continue to our topic for this month?
Yes, a big thank you to our guest host and our dear collegiate friend, Christina Franklin, noted female and occasional
What?
gentle editor, for coming on the show. Since we went to all the trouble of getting someone with an extra X chromosome,
We've actually
let's
had
talk
quite a
about...
few guest hosts with extra chromosomes.
We did, but we haven't talked about this topic yet, and that
haven't.
is doing justice to characters of the opposite gender.
AKA Gender Tokenism, run away! SJW alert! I'm just kidding. I hate that term, by the way.
Actually,
It's so dumb.
the
People need to
opposite
get over
of
that.
it's more like avoiding gender tokenism.
Right.
Some writers may be on the fence about including characters of other traits that they don't personally share, like,
Which is
say,
dumb, but-
faith, political beliefs, gender identity.
It's almost like they don't realize that they're characters. They're not them.
So let's go ahead and start with a bit of a I'm going to call this a round table about why including other characters in your stories is a good choice. And sorry, Donald, we're talking about generally hominoid ones, not simply varying dinosaur
I
species.
know, but hey, my books are like 50-50 male-female, like the characters, so which is pretty rare in the world of fiction nowadays. Like, I think in my last book, there's actually one more female character than male characters. And there's so many scenes where there's just a bunch of female characters, and they're not talking about guys.
Oh my gosh, Big Spender.
Okay, seriously,
throw that
what
out,
is
though.
with that stereotype? Girls do not only talk about guys.
I know. It's almost like they're people. It's, if you can hear
There's a comment.
dogs barking, by the way, there's something rang on the doorbell here, by the way. And so if
Gotcha. Now I'm hearing it. Now you said something.
if you're hearing it, the listeners certainly are hearing it. So
Well, no, it's more of a because nobody else was talking and I could hear them because you were saying, oh, by the way, my dogs are barking as they're barking.
Yeah, I heard you start talking just after.
oh yeah, cool. Okay, so
Anyways.
like no, yeah, so yeah, that is
No,
a dumb stereotype,
I mean-
but like yeah, for me it's just writing characters. Like some characters, some people are male, some people are female, some people are both, some people are neither. Gender's a very fluid thing. So
That is true. That is certainly true. And I think that, well, to be fair, with dinosaurs, they don't necessarily go through some of the travails that mammals do. We might talk about some of that.
I don't know.
more
They probably
later,
go through
but for
some
right
variants, but
now-
nothing that I really want to get into.
Exactly. But that's the thing, though, is that as a male writer, I feel uncomfortable writing female characters for a couple of reasons. Obviously, I don't write about dinosaurs, for one thing, which, that's because I don't
I
have
just
the expertise.
really relate to dinosaurs, okay? Sometimes I just go out into the woods and roar. No.
Something about tuning with your inner dinosaur, right, Penny?
Exactly.
Oh, wait, Penny's not present. Anyway.
You were spared from that bloodbath. I don't know if you heard that at the beginning of that episode last time.
Oh, jeez. You should catch up if you haven't, Christina. It's kind of hilarious.
It's a murder mystery that we did.
So, before we get too much further, let's talk about things related to inclusion.
Hold on.
Not just, like...
Hold on.
Yes,
you keep talking. I'm going to shut up these dogs. Tell them to shut up the dog.
I was about to say that could have sounded very violent for a moment there.
Hold on. Well, okay, yeah. I'm gonna get the shovel. No, I'm just kidding.
And we're editing all of that out. Go ahead and go do what you're gonna
The bully
do.
is
Wait.
back.
They stopped, so we're good. No, you're safe tonight, dogs. No.
Oh my god.
All right, continue.
Okay. Anyways, but about inclusion.
Yes.
What's the good part about it? What's the bad part about it? Hopefully, everybody has something to bring to the table. This shouldn't take terribly long, but let's just talk about it. Inclusion.
Actually, we'll let our guest host go first, just because I think it's the proper thing to
Doesn't
do.
have to be
as
a certain
gentleman.
order. It's a round table. It shouldn't. There doesn't have to be an order. It's a round table.
Right,
Go
I
ahead.
know, but yeah.
If you've got a thought, just say it.
Oh, well, I have no thoughts
Exactly.
ever, so I guess I'll just be
Oh,
silent.
really? 3-time author.
So, I mean, there are arguments on both sides, definitely. For inclusion.
Very fine people, you might say.
Like? Tell us about them.
So, I mean, I guess it depends on what aspect you're going for. If you're going for a society where everyone is essentially the same, I mean, there's really no need.
If you're doing it for a purpose, like trying to make a point, then I suppose including characters just so they're there is kind of silly.
Yes.
Right,
However, the work could definitely be more rounded if you have more characters there. Because think about society. If you want it to be relatable, not everybody's going to be the same. Everybody has something different about them from somebody else.
Yes, indeed.
I'm unique, just like everyone else.
I'm not unique. I'm like no one else. Therefore, I am unique.
No, sure.
It's like, I'm not
sure.
unique
Keep
because
thinking
I'm
that.
unique.
Basically.
Well, no, anyway, I mean, it's one of those things that, when you look at, like, my take on this relates to, like, Black Panther as a prominent example.
Yes.
Here's a movie about a predominantly darker-skinned community that we don't typically see in mainstream media all the time.
Yeah, like,
But
to the point where
look at
when there's
how
a
many
white guy,
people
he's
in
the
the
token
world-
white guy, basically.
But look at how many people in the world have that skin color.
Exactly.
And yet we see all these white-led movies. Where do these people see characters that resemble themselves?
Exactly. Well,
This is my take on it, and feel free to disagree. But like, the reason you want to include somebody in is to make your audience, vary us as they are, find somebody worth caring about, somebody that kind of resembles them. It might not be an appearance, especially with the non-visual medium like books.
right, especially if they're dinosaurs.
You don't have this problem, especially if they're dinosaurs.
Well-
They won't necessarily care so much about what the appearance is,
But who the character
somebody
is.
that they
It's
can
more about the personality
feel
of the
for.
character in that case.
Right, exactly.
In that case, it is. Now, if you're talking about a visual medium, then there needs to be somebody that they do actually resemble, that they can kind of rally around.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big push right now for Asian descendant superheroes because, like, all of these audiences, like, I think more than half of the world's population has some Asia relation in their blood.
I mean, it makes sense. Like,
It makes sense because China is the most
and
populous.
India's not
and
far
whatnot.
behind now.
But do you call India quite the same as...
It's not
when
Far
I
East
say
Asian, but it's
is that
definitely
what you
Asian.
think?
So,
All right. But anyway, when you look at those numbers, but all of the characters that are on screen are generally white, predominantly male. That's a different argument, but where do Asian fans get to see a character that they like, that rally behind? And yes, there are some recent movies doing this, but I think there needs to be more work done.
Right.
Similarly, in books, you you should include them. Devil's advocate here, though. You shouldn't include them for the sake of having them.
Right, they should have a purpose. Like, and
You should have them in there because that way they mean something. They bring something different to the table.
right.
Sorry, I think I was cutting you off, Donald. Go ahead.
No, you weren't. I was just listening.
mean,
but basically,
it's
no, yeah,
one of
like they
those
should all
things.
have a purpose. Like, and this is like just any character, like male, female, black, white, Asian, dinosaur, sign raptor, velociraptor. I could go on, and believe me, I would love to.
I'm sure, but we don't have the time.
Well, it's like if you're gonna have a character that's different in one of those ways, you want to make sure that there's something they're actually bringing to the work.
Exactly.
True. Well, and my solution is kind of, simplistic. But how about making sure that it's not just one?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's
I-
why it's not just like the token one. It's like if you have just one, it's obvious that you just had him or her just to have him or her. Like.
Well, it's like you
Right.
need to have their personality, but you need to also have their life planned out in that case, so you know who they surround
True.
themselves with.
Yeah, exactly.
That is true too, and it's not easy to do. I don't mean to suggest that it's as simple as, oh well, I put 2 Asian characters in my story. That must be sufficient. It probably isn't if you're not.
It's
Asian.
not a mathematical formula.
No, it's not. Well, and something we haven't mentioned because so far it's been focused on race. But what about gender identity, sexual preferences,
Well, like
belief systems?
in Megazoic, there's a bunch of, like I said, it's half and half usually, and a lot of times for me, when I'm writing the women as opposed to writing the men, it's pretty much just like what is their character traits first, and like what does that define? What defines them like that? And gender isn't really that much of a part of it. For me, anyways, and like, although some characters who are straight and in romantic relationships, that of course the gender is an important role there. But a lot of times, like the traditional sort of gender roles that people have are reversed. Like the main couple in my story, the female is much more of has more masculine traits. She's very aggressive and also very. Like she's the leader of a great organization. Never once is her leadership questioned because she's a woman. It might be questioned for other things, but while the male in this relationship is the nurturer. He's the one that's much more like trying to, like the emotional support, So it's kind of reversed from the stereotype.
That's actually the point that I was just about to make, is that one trap that a lot of people fall into when they're trying to write these other different characters, no matter how they're different, is if they don't understand it, they fall into those stereotypes.
Exactly.
And that
Like,
The Asian
that actually
is always
makes
the
it
kung
worse.
Fu master. The black guy is always indentured.
Right. Or, isn't
The
educated.
black person gets killed off first.
And yep. In a cheap horror movie, there's one. If you're a black guy in a cheap horror movie, if you happen to be an employer, hire more black people.
Okay, to be
Or
to
if
be
you're in
fair,
Star Trek and you happen to be wearing a red shirt.
I may not watch many horror movies, but I'm pretty sure it would
I
be
don't.
the ditzy blonde that's usually killed off first.
Well,
Well, okay, and this is kind of silly on my part, but the reason I wouldn't kill off the ditzy blonde is because the ditzy blonde has probably got the best scream.
yeah,
I
you
wanna
gotta,
say
you
that.
gotta keep using it.
But then you'd have to explain how the ditzy
Anyways.
blonde actually got to the end.
Yeah,
I think it'd be funny if
if
everyone died except for the black guy or the ditzy, the ditzy blonde or whatever.
Thanks for talking about inclusion, but let's move on to the next one real quick,
Right.
and that is, who's got it better? Females writing males, or males writing females?
Like, you mean in terms of the writing process?
I mean in terms of the author writing the opposite gender. Who's got it better?
Like, who's it easier for, you mean?
Is it more or less?
Okay. Honestly, I feel like females writing males is easier just because I was talking to my sister about this earlier today. She thinks that a lot of times, like males often when they write females, if they're like inherently have some sort of sexist views, even if they don't realize that they are a lot of stereotypes. Well, the main issue with that females have writing males is that they tend to oversimplify. I guess males do this too to females, but like they tend to oversimplify, make us a lot simpler than we actually are. But the thing is, though, A lot of times
That's true in the inverse, too.
A lot of times, though, with guys, we are kind of that simple. Like, sometimes we are.
Well, okay, the emotional complexity with which we operate is on a different level than that of women. And by that I mean to say that women simply operate on a higher plane in that field. And so it's not necessarily incorrect to simplify us.
Right.
But how far do you simplify it?
There's this great quote in Phineas and Ferb that I love so much when these girls are trying to, like, figure out what these guys want. And then this girl talked to this guy, and the guy said, "Save me a dance." And then the other girl asked her, "So, what did he say?" And then she's like, "I think it's going well. He asked me to save him a dance." And she's like, "What do you think he meant by that?" He's like, "I'm pretty sure it means he wants to dance with me." And then she's like, "Men and their impossible endless riddles."
I know exactly who and which episode you're talking about.
I just think it's so funny. It's just like they think we're so complicated, but we're really not. So,
Well, you guys think we're so
Well-
complicated, and we're not that complicated either.
I don't know about that.
Okay,
no.
okay, hold on. As you'd expect, the guys think the girls have it better. You know.
Well, I don't mean to
my take on
mansplain
it is
here.
this.
But no.
I got a fun story to tell
Yes.
you. When I was in college, a different female friend, this is after Donald transferred to a different school.
Ah,
When I was in college, a different female friend of mine and I had a conversation about why are women so hard to understand? And not like there's in one catch-all reason, because there isn't, because obviously these are vastly different people, even amongst the same gender. But like the thing that she said that still lingers in my mind is that even women don't understand other women. And I'm just like, well, gosh, I have no hope then.
This is very true. Each woman is very different in how we act.
So you can't say that women are more simple than guys think, because that's simply not the case. But like
Some
for
women,
this
okay, sometimes they
I
might
think
be,
that-
but-
Depends on how
well,
observant you are.
Well,
It also
then,
depends
well, then
on the
I'm
woman.
screwed.
Yes,
I'm
this
not
is very
observant at
true.
all.
Well, see, I actually think that the guys have it a little better.
Of course you do. But please tell us why.
It's grass is always
But-
greener on the other side.
But let me explain though.
Of course.
We
As I
are
say, go
very
ahead.
open with our emotions.
Yeah.
So it's a lot
Are you?
easier to see what's going on, even if you don't understand it.
About that, I'd
Um,
like to have a word with my ex-girlfriends about they're not.
Maybe
they're not
maybe they're
directness.
more
Well,
open
see-
with their emotions about to each other.
I was about to say they're definitely not very like direct when it comes
Like,
to
but a lot of
us.
times, if there's like a girl that's upset, I'm like, "What's bothering you?" Their answer is usually just like, "You wouldn't even understand." I'm like, "What am I supposed to do with that?"
What I mean is,
All right,
it's
let's stop
easier-
ganging up on the woman here.
What I mean is, even if you're looking just at facial features,
Yes.
from what I've noticed, most guys will just try to hide it till they're alone. I
That's
could
true.
be wrong on that. and I'm
Yep.
not saying every
No,
guy
actually,
is
that's
like
true.
that.
Like a lot of times, sometimes
It-
men like the
well,
whole toxic
okay, you're talking to
masculinity
two guys
thing.
who do that, but
Yeah, a lot of
But-
times we think that like we have to hide our emotions because that's not manly to be emotional. So you're actually right on that one.
But
So.
when you guys are alone, are you able to channel your emotions and actually express to yourself what you're going through?
I'm not the best
I think
example,
so.
but
So
like,
I think so, but I mean, you're talking to two very, let's face it, untraditional males.
Well, this is very
out of
true.
A large male population at large, because, well, I mean, Donald grew up with 3 older sisters, and so he has learned the value of being close to his quote-unquote feminine side.
I am so feminine. I am one sachet away from buying me some high heels here.
My sister-in-law grew up with 3 brothers.
Yeah.
So,
Is she more masculine-esque?
Well, my mom
than
actually grew up with
feminine?
3
I don't know.
brothers too, so she's actually pretty masculine. Like she really likes sports, for instance. So
Well, I mean, you grow up in a house of all brothers, it's probably the only thing they cared to watch, so.
not necessarily, but yeah.
Not necessarily, but I mean, you get the point.
But my
I mean,
point-
yes, we're overgeneralizing.
My
Yeah.
point is,
Go ahead.
it seems to me, now tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me like most guys are able to at least put themselves in the shoes of the character that they're writing if it's a female. To say, okay, what would I be feeling in this situation?
sometimes
How would I express this if I was going
Are
to?
you suggesting,
Yeah.
though, that the inverse is not true?
No, I am not.
Because that's why I think that girls have it easier. Because, I mean, let's
From a psychology
guys,
standpoint
dissing
here, I think we're
ourselves
always
here.
going to say the other side has it easier.
Well, okay, not even that pop psychology stuff. More like when it comes to thinking about the full range of emotions that the other gender is capable of. I personally believe that women, because they are naturally more aligned with their own, have a much easier time predicting the full range of male emotional responses than a guy is in the inverse.
But it depends on if you want to look at every single what if in every single situation. Because I can tell you that's what I end up doing.
Well, I could feel like if I did that, I'd just get bogged down in that. But
If you overanalyze, it's kind of silly. But, like, I mean, you need some device. Well, okay, let's get out of this roundtable.
yeah, like
I think we've answered the question.
we're already about an hour.
We've
in.
answered the question that, you know, both of us think
I
the
totally
opposite has
jinxed
better.
it by saying, "Oh, we're so efficient. We're already an hour
Yes,
in."
yes,
and
you
we've
did.
barely gotten into our notes.
Yes, you did.
Because that was your fault, sir. Anyways, so let's go to our next subject. This is I have this awful title, the Q&A with Christine A.
I was wondering why you hyphenated it.
Exactly. Now you know.
Sometimes when my co-host
Anyways.
thinks he's clever, listeners, no.
As I said, I didn't think it was great.
No,
It's
no.
just there.
Hey, you have your moments too.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, thanks, I think. Anyway, so these are pretty straightforward. If you've got something to chime in on, the main hosts have something to chime in on, go ahead and say it. But mostly we're asking our resident female and quote-unquote female expert on this. So, let's go.
I'm scared.
Okay, so are there any out-of-bounds or taboo things for male writers to consider when crafting scenes with female characters?
Okay, so, like, are you asking, are there any things that should just be avoided, or?
Yes. Basically, like, are there things that we should just not do because there's little chance we'll portray them accurately?
Well, that also depends
For
on
example,
the male who's writing
well, okay, there is that too. But for example, if I'm a woman, I'm not, but if I am a woman,
What?
would I dare?
I'm just gonna make
Yeah,
that joke.
sure,
right?
like you too, Donald. Anyway, they won't mention a period unless it's their parent or some other female, right?
When do you mention periods when it's your parents, David? What kind of weirdo are you?
well, I
Well,
mean-
no, if it is a parent writing it, they might.
Oh. Okay, that makes
No, that's
a
not
hell
what
of a
I-
Well,
lot
that's
more
the
sense.
way
what
I
I was-
saw it.
That's not what I was referring to. I'm referring to in real life. Women don't freely talk about their periods to any guy that's walking by. The only time they talk about it is with their mother, some parent, if they don't have a mother, perhaps, which is why I had a parent as opposed to just a mom.
Well,
Or, another female.
well,
Is that incorrect?
again, it depends on the person, because
Fair.
some women will just talk about their period no matter who's around.
Well, I'm
Usually
avoiding
it'll
those
be-
women.
Scary.
Usually it'll be a close friend, whether it's a guy or a girl. Then again, some girls have guy best friends who are not gay, who will go to the store and buy them tampons.
That's a true gentleman.
I was about to tell a story. I have a family friend for a very long time, and his family, he married, and they have 4 lovely children, but they're all daughters.
Oh,
And
jeez.
the line goes that he got so comfortable buying tampons that the store treated him like a regular.
So anyway, to get
I mean, yeah, it depends on the guy, but
to get back to the question,
Yes.
yeah.
personally, I can't think of too many things that should really be taboo. I mean, any male writer should at least be willing to explore, see if they actually feel comfortable writing it, if they want to add something like that into their story for a reason.
I don't know. I feel like that there might not be things that are taboo, but there might be things that might just make women roll their eyes when they see a male writer.
Well, yes.
That is something.
Yes.
Like,
But that's
like when
not
a male
necessarily
writer
Well, like
has
the-
a
topic, though.
Well, like,
like-
if you guys were writing a female character who was going bra shopping, for instance.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, because she's a Triple H, that she might.
It's like you guys don't know what. It's like you guys don't know what goes on when a woman goes.
We don't.
To go get a bra.
I hear there's something about elasticity.
And I was gonna say, if we're talking about garments in general, I mean, whether they're lingerie or
See, that'd be something.
outerwear,
If I was a woman and I was reading a book about by a male author, and the male author went to great lengths describing the woman's lingerie, that'd make me roll my eyes. I mean, make me roll my eyes now if I was reading.
It makes me slap my forehead already.
It would depend on the genre there.
Well, if it's a romance
Yeah,
novel.
or if like they did some sort of unnecessary detail, like she crossed her arms, pushing up her breasts, or something like. Do we really need that detail? Like,
it depends on what emotion they're trying to have her portray.
I guess that's true.
If she's trying to show how talented she is, I guess that's not the right word, but
Anyway,
Well,
should we move on?
In a situation like that, it would actually usually be anger or embarrassment, and accidental.
sure. Well, embarrassment, they probably wouldn't be pushing them up. They'd probably be trying to cover
That's
them
why I
up.
said accidental,
Yeah.
because it actually can happen accidentally when they're embarrassed.
What? That they push
Yes.
them up
As someone
instead?
with a nice pair of moves, I can relate. No. With a nice.
Oh my god. We try to keep things kid friendly, but
Oh, we've
obviously
already
topic
blown
like
past
this.
that at this point.
Well, I was gonna throw out the whole like sex scenes thing.
Okay,
None of us will probably write them, but are they taboo?
I'm gonna step aside here.
see, I don't think that those would necessarily be taboo. It's just a matter of if they're comfortable with it or not, because that just goes into fantasy.
Yeah.
True. Well, and the other thing that comes to my mind is too, like how much detail you put in is entirely up to you.
Yeah.
Well, see, that also will depend on the genre and the audience.
Right.
Because
This is
if you're writing a young adult novel, you're not going to write every single little detail of a sex scene.
I'm sure they'd like it if you did, though. Actually, no, maybe not. Some of it's
If you're writing a
disgusting.
book for kids, you wouldn't even do it.
But if
so.
you're writing erotica, that's completely different.
That is true.
Well, I don't read
All right,
porn
so
for
it
the
doesn't
plot,
sound like there's anything
but-
taboo, but like if it's something that is inherently female, like buying underwear, as one example.
Again, I don't know if
maybe,
it's taboo.
You should do some more research.
Yeah, research is really
Just
the
to
key
figure
thing
out
of
what
any
it
of
is.
this.
Because, I mean, if you're
All
actually going to have a scene surrounded by that, then you at least need to know what all it entails.
You should try and describe it adequately, right?
Accurately,
correctly,
yeah.
as best you
Yeah,
can.
exactly.
Okay, next question. How do you get past any fears about writing awkward scenes featuring either partially or entirely the other gender?
I think it depends on the person, but for me, it would be just to write a test version of it, just to get my writing of it out there, just to get it out there and just see, okay, how do they feel writing that, and okay, was that as bad as I thought it would be? I don't know.
Yeah, that's another one that's
The power
kind
of drafts.
more in the comfort question. Because, like, there are some times where I personally have a little bit of difficulty writing those awkward scenes because it feels awkward to me.
Right.
Sure.
If something feels too awkward, I generally just tend to try to figure out, okay,
Avoid it.
is there a way that I can put this in a setting that's not as awkward with the specific thing going on? Can I change the actions or conversations that are going on, but still keep the same feel that I'm going for? The same.
Right. It's
Just-
like,
Well, and I put listeners can't see our note document, but I put awkward in quotes because I want to bring up a quote that I've heard. Awkward is simply a state of mind.
well,
If
yeah,
you think it's awkward, then it is. But if you don't, then it isn't.
right,
This is very true.
of course.
All right. Well, because we're a little pressed for time, let's go ahead and move on to the next question, which is, are there any fun exercises to try wrapping your head around a character concept that's so different from you? Like the system of beliefs, gender identity, sexual preference, race, etc.
Okay, so what I do for that is, alright, I have this little poster that I still want to hang on the wall that says that any bystanders, or it's a warning to bystanders saying that they may be written in.
You'll be written into my book.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I had a shirt that said that once.
You have a shirt.
And
that
I
said
think I
that.
sent you guys pictures of a picture of it after I got it too.
Nice.
I believe so.
But all of my main characters, I should say, the background characters not so much.
Yeah, that's how I am.
But most of my main characters have their basis in somebody that I actually know.
Right.
So one thing I
So you're writing from a position of strength as opposed to, oh, this is all unknown.
For the most part, yes. But it's like I'll say, okay, which aspect is it? Who does this aspect remind me of? Like, if the character is a black guy who's atheist, who's
Protection of the innocent, by the way, so
say
just keep that in mind.
who is transgender.
Right.
Ah.
Black
So-
atheist transgender.
I'm just
That sounds like an Oscar movie waiting to happen.
Wow. It's definitely not me.
it's obscure. But if I have a character that is going to be like that, I don't right now, but if I was going to, I would say, okay, let's break this down further.
Oh, you don't want to make your Cinderella transgender?
It's like, who do I know who's
With
atheist?
those characteristics.
Who do I know
Who's black?
that is black? Who do I know that's transgender?
Right.
And I'll try to take the pieces that seem to relate to that aspect and mesh those together.
Well, you say mesh them together, and that brings up something else that's a little difficult, too, because you're talking about 3 different inspirations for one character.
Right. You have to
So
figure
if
out
you
how to
take
meld them.
individual traits, how would you meld them such that, they're still, like, either, if you want to make sure they're all somehow present, as opposed to just the model,
Right.
See, that's when I would say you'd have to go, okay, these parts kind of contradict each other. Which one? It could be an internal
more important for
conflict,
the
but
story
which
you're
one
telling.
is stronger?
Right.
Absolutely.
And
I
the
have a
character
couple
can
of-
show insecurity there.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like,
Particularly with, like, non-traditional gender identity stuff, that's really quite common in how they live their life, isn't it? That they're always questioning because they feel...
well, because society
either-
always hammers into them.
So
There's
different.
only 2 genders, and then that makes them feel like, what am I then? And it's really sad. It's really like I have a friend who's transgender, and she said like she described it to me as like imagine like because I told her like I cannot understand how that feels to feel like you're not the gender that you physically are, but I recognize that
Right.
you do. And that's all I need. But then she described it to me and it was like, imagine looking at a mirror and feeling like you're not looking at yourself. And I thought that was an interesting.
Body switching.
See,
Well, yeah,
I
that-
have-
Freaky Friday.
well, see, I
Freaky
have-
Friday.
That was a little too...
See-
that was a little too,
Well,
Right.
see,
simple for
I
what we're talking
have-
about here, but...
I have a friend from high school actually, who describes himself as pansexual.
Right. Yeah, that means basically everything, right?
And when I asked him what that meant, he said, I don't love guys, I don't love girls, I just love who I love.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, I mentioned exercises in the question. I actually asked this question on purpose because I do have a couple of them, so if you'll let me have them.
No, we won't. I refuse.
Go right ahead.
Well, Donald hasn't contributed much, so
I write dinosaurs and romance or like other kind of stuff. It really isn't integral to the stories that I write and or the identities like this. It's like
Well, you do have a relationship in one of them, so you do have
I do, and I
hidden
do have
romance.
and actually in the third
simply
book,
having romance isn't quite the full extent of this.
well, like
question
and it's a
either.
straight
Go ahead,
romance,
third
but
book.
like the third book, this isn't a spoiler now because it's out now. Buy it on Amazon.com.
What about the second one where you actually do mention the lesbian
No,
relationship?
that's the third one. That's what I was gonna say. The third
Okay,
one,
now you're spoiling it
Oh,
for
I'm
me.
sorry.
Spoiler alert. Basically, a character is revealed to be lesbian in the third book, and then their lesbian girlfriend comes in, and like it's more just treated as like, oh, this is just another a character trait of this character that we already knew, and it adds like a fun little dynamic between her and another character, like. So it's not really treated as like a big deal, like no one really gives a crap. So
Because he didn't treat it as a big deal, you don't have to do some mental gymnastics to get yourself into the right place to write that character who is vastly different.
and plus she's not the
But
main character too.
if
Like
you
it's not
do-
from her perspective. The story isn't. So
Well,
there's
see,
only
If you do, I have a couple of ideas.
Yeah.
The first one is you put that character in a room with the author and doing like a staged interview.
ooh.
It may become a debate, or it's simply an airing of grievances, but it's designed to get you into their head a bit more. Another variant of this is just a sandbox scene, like Donald earlier was talking about doing a draft, you know.
Right.
You run a test scene, if you will, right? Featuring the character you're most comfortable writing with the one you're attempting to figure out.
Right.
Because when you go through random situations in that sandbox, you test their reactions. What's realistic? What's not? You find out those limits for yourself, as in the author, about this character.
Right.
The second idea is creating a character sheet of sorts, where you chart the reactions to frequent, somewhat common, and some uncommon situations.
Right.
If you know how those will work before you tackle some kind of serious scene with the character solidifies before you have a chance to question yourself in process.
Right.
Although how fun these exercises are probably in the eye of the beholder.
I'd probably hate them. That's just because I hate writing
See,
things
I
that
actu-
aren't like
I've
Yeah.
actually done the second one.
nice.
I actually rather enjoy doing that.
Yeah.
Again, it may not be fun, but it's certainly an exercise.
It could,
Well, see,
it could be necessary
I
work.
enjoy it because you do get to know your character more, and
Absolutely.
you can essentially actually become your character when you're writing it.
Right. Makes
It's
sense.
like, okay,
Mhm.
the answer was no before this began, so obviously the answer's going to be no.
Right.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
to-
last one.
well, I was gonna say,
question.
to-
Go ahead.
to backtrack just a little bit to the
Sure.
not making it such a big deal that there's a lesbian character.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually something that is good even if it is a main character,
Right.
because
It shouldn't be a big deal. It's just a part of who they are.
exactly.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
one, it could offend a lot of people, and two, it would take away from the story.
Right.
Well, unless it's a part of the story, like that, discovery such that they decide I am, as opposed to wondering.
Well,
about
like-
it. If that's a beat
Well,
in your story, then that's
Then,
different.
then there's a certain way to go about it where it's a big deal to them, but you're not making a big deal about it as
Right.
the writer.
Well, like so.
Not preaching from behind the pen.
Right.
Yes.
Well, like in my story, for instance, what happens that this character that the other characters, because they need a ride, and they call this character in, and they haven't seen this character who's lesbian in a long time. They didn't know she was lesbian, or they just didn't really concern them. And then by the time between when they last saw her and now, she's gotten into a relationship, and the character that she's in a relationship with is along on the ride with them. And then they're like, "Wait, who is she?" And then she's like, "My partner." And then that's basically it. So
Just another day at the grocery store.
well, I think I actually call attention to the fact that I don't call attention to it. Like when the character's like my partner, and then another character's like partner, eyes narrowing, but then they say, "I didn't realize you were the type to start settling down."
Because that's the reaction.
Yeah, their eyes were
Anyway.
narrowing, not because of the fact that, oh, you're a lesbian, but it's like, I didn't realize you were the type to settle down.
I didn't think you were going to sell for a relationship. What?
Yeah.
That is brilliant in its simplicity.
Well, thank
I'll say
you.
that.
What do you? Well, hopefully, Christina shares that sentiment.
Anyway, last question. What situations should you check with others for their veracity? Meaning, people of that gender, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Alright.
Like, I'll give one random example. Earlier we talked about the bra shopping thing. If a guy has
Sorry, I'm
never written
immature.
a bra shopping, if he's never been shopping for bras or tampons, what does he know? So how will he write them? So, like, if it were me, I'd run those bits by my few female friends, and I wouldn't mind accidentally offending, just to see if it's realistic. That said, I've only done this twice. You'll notice that most of my work doesn't have that many women in it,
My
so-
work has a lot of women in it. I guess because they're dinosaurs, but never once have I had to write a scene where they go bra shopping.
But they're dinosaurs!
A dinosaur wearing a bra. There's quite the scene.
They don't even have mammaries because they're not
You
mammals.
know, I'll put it out there that I've given Donald a lot of crap about how his dinosaurs are simply humans in dinosaurs' clothing.
Yes.
But one benefit of them being dinosaurs is they do not have to deal with the same body types that humans do.
Yeah, it means they don't have to. Their armor doesn't have to worry about covering up certain parts of their body.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, or you have to worry about what is it, superheroine armor, which is apparently like smaller than any bikini ever. You know?
You know what? That could be all right as long as the guy gets equal treatment. Like he's wearing like just a
Well,
leotard,
I was
just
about
like
to
a
say.
speedo thong or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a Speedo. Because, like, this is so dumb. Like, yes, it's eye candy, perhaps, but, like, it serves no functional purpose. It makes no sense. How is what Wonder Woman wears armor?
Well, they've added. They sometimes they add pants to her now, and they do is like more armor to her.
Sometimes they add things, and sometimes they do. I mean, but you get the point. It's generally males wear a very functional set of armor because we're not showing them off. But the women are basically.
I mean,
being
sometimes the men do
exploited.
wear skin
Okay,
tight.
that is because it is stereotyped. I don't know how true the stereotype is, but it's stereotyped that men will pay more attention if the woman's wearing less clothing.
Probably, unfortunately, that might be
Well,
true.
I suppose that's quite true.
Well, what I think is really
it does
funny in
depend on the
female
guy.
armor, isn't it?
It does depend on the guy.
Sometimes what I think is funny in female armor is not so much just how much or how little it covers, but that the chest piece is shaped like breasts. A lot of times you see
Oh,
that
boy.
in female armor, where like they actually shape the chest, the armor, and like that's not necessary. You can just make it one plate.
First of all, the top part of that is actually called a sweetheart neckline.
Cool. I would not have known. Trivia, listeners, here in the
more
folks
you
of the
know.
Midwest.
Anyways, let's get back to the question, which has nothing to do with female armor.
Anyway, so I actually kind of do the same thing you do.
Yeah.
I've got a couple male friends who, I mean, even if it's one of my just random scenes that pops into my head, like, okay, to give an example, I had a couple friends who were murdered, and
Oh.
yeah, it's kind of
Wow.
The attitude of this thing just dropped.
Beep just got serious.
Okay,
And-
I know we're ruining the seriousness here, but yeah, sorry.
So anyway,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
it was
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It was just after we found out that they had been brutally dismembered and burned
Sheesh.
that
Sheesh.
that one of my friends and I had a conversation, and as soon as we got off of a video call, I had a scene pop into my head.
Oh no, dismemberment and burning.
No,
I just
it was actually a really sweet. It was actually a really sweet scene. I can actually send it to you later if you want. Between a guy and his girlfriend, where she's just sitting on the bed, still in shock of the situation that is
Right.
around her,
Mhm.
and you can see the tension building. But I wasn't sure how he was going to really react.
right.
I just knew how she would react because in this scene, essentially, I was her.
Right. You can put yourself in her shoes, but to put yourself into the guys
Yeah.
is a lot harder.
So, I actually sent it to the guy who I had been talking to
Nice.
Yeah.
because this friend was actually a big part of my inspiration for this character.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I ended up sending it to him. And that works really well for me. As long as I don't tell people if the character that they're reading about is based off of
Right, that might be a little awkward.
it works.
Well, and some people would probably be cognizant of it too, because of who the author is in this case, being a close connection to them already, and the situation, and that situation is pretty hyper specific.
This particular situation, though, parts of the character were based off of him. Most of it just came.
Wow. You know,
so most of it wasn't actually based off of a person. It was basically just his looks that were based off the friend.
Oh. And I'm sure you didn't spend too much time describing his luxurious hair or his beautiful eyes or something that was be a dead giveaway.
Well, it's the eyes and the height, more like.
Well, thanks for sharing those details with us.
Well, it's kind of funny. A little tangent here. I remember one time I wrote a story, and I wrote this character who had recently gotten married with this girl from college that she met from college, but she was with someone else at the time. But he realized she was the one, but she was with someone else at the time, so he had to wait until
the one that got away.
Yeah, but they eventually ended up not working out, so he pounced on that, and then they got together. But I mean, of course, he gave her space after. It's not like immediately after they broke up. Like, oh, by the way.
You don't want to be the rebound. You don't want to be the rebound there.
Right. But, like,
whether you care that much about her or not.
I remember, like, I subconsciously based this off of someone that I had a crush on in college. That, like, was with someone at the time, and they had recently broken up, and I hadn't done anything, and by the way, it didn't work. We didn't do anything. She's still just a good friend of mine. But, I didn't realize this until I was reading this scene out to a writing group that around the entire school where this girl was in the audience. And I was subconsciously freaking out. I was like, oh, crap.
Trying not to sweat bullets.
I didn't realize I was basing this off of this situation, but I am, and there she is. Thankfully, she didn't pick up on it, or if she did, she didn't tell me. But that was fun.
Grief.
Oh,
good
I
grief.
didn't realize...
No, that is really funny, especially when you get away with it, too.
I somehow got away with that.
You don't notice? Okay, but, and this is great. We're talking about, what you've done, how you check but the question was not how you check it.
But it's what situation.
What kind of situations should you check?
See, my point in my little tangent was that one of the situations where you should check is if it's something where you're not exactly sure how they would actually respond. Right. Because, like, in my situation, a tragedy's just occurred. And a guy's gonna react a lot differently than a girl is.
Right.
So, it's like...
I mean, there's also quite some variance in how people handle crises.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this is true. And
I just
it also,
cower
it also,
and wait
it also
for it to
goes
be over.
back... It also goes back to the imagination of, okay, this is the situation. What type of character am I dealing with here?
Right.
Am I dealing with a character who's just going to say, walk it off?
Rub some dirt in it.
Yeah. Suck it up! Be a man! Rub some dirt in it!
Or...
Well, that was... that was the common baseball refrain, though. Rub some dirt in it.
Or the type of character who would just add more salt and lemon juice to the wound.
Ah.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
Or someone who's actually going to be caring and know exactly what to do.
I mean, you have to come up with that beforehand. There are a few types of reactions to that, I think. But the best way to check and see if it's, true is to try and find somebody who aligns closely with that. I don't think it's like exact, because you don't want it to be exact if you're telling a story, unless it's like based highly on real events.
Well, that's why you should check with a few different people.
That's true as well. But if they don't have the same reaction, then you don't necessarily get the feedback you're looking for, right?
This isn't the feedback you're
yes
looking
and no.
for. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Because if you ask multiple people and they give you different opinions on it, I mean, if you're not asking specifically if they as a person would react this way, if you're asking in general, do you think that your gender would react this way? You can actually ask follow-up questions and say, okay, which aspect?
Right.
That's fair.
I don't know.
So yeah, definitely reactions to something hugely drastic would be something like that. I would also, for me, and this was and the one I mentioned earlier, all female bits, like, okay, bra shopping was just a joke example, but the one I actually used is I had a conversation between two female characters in a story of mine, and what I wanted to do was just to make sure it wasn't too far off base, that it wasn't completely unrealistic that they'd talk about these things. And so that's why I checked it. Subject matter in an all-girls conversation, which obviously I can never participate in.
This is very true.
That was something that I had to check.
Yeah, the only way...
And it turned out it was okay, but that's something else too that I really have to caution our listeners about.
That you've never...
see, not just subject matter, but okay, here's another example of one thing that you guys wouldn't be able to fully understand. A girl's sleepover.
Oh God, no.
I know.
I can only imagine. Or a bachelorette party.
I'm assuming that the pillow fights and underwear thing is not actually what happens.
See,
well, okay, not only what happens, perhaps.
See, I only know what I saw whenever my brothers had somebody spend the night, as far as guys staying over.
Right.
And all I saw was video games.
Oh, trust me, we've got some material there if you ever are that
we
curious.
certainly had our own pillow fights and underwear. That's
Trying to give me images here.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we're good at giving images.
But anyway, well, likewise, I've definitely got stories of what goes on at a girl's sleepover, and it is not exactly what you think.
Aw, I mean,
we don't know what to think, so...
But that's my point.
Yeah.
It's something like a sleepover or anything intimate. That's really something you need to check.
I mean, it also depends on the situation.
But if it's so intimate, how do you check it, And that's where it depends on who you're asking, of course, and what the characters are. If it's based on the person, if something's so intimate, if the characters are based off you and that friend, would you dare ask that friend if it's right?
Depends on if you have their approval for it beforehand.
Or if you're sneaky enough about
or
it.
if you're worried about offending them. Like, if this is the way that you admit your long harbored crush for them, that's kind of a bad opportunity.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. I wonder what that's like.
Then it's a matter of, okay, do you tell them beforehand or do you just rush out of there? But what I was thinking is, instead of just having them comment on the whole thing, if there's just a certain part of it that you're unsure about, just ask them to look at that one specific aspect of the scene.
Well, and how big is the scene you're asking them to check, too? That's something else to consider.
Yes, that is definitely something to consider.
They have to be really... I really want to be really in detail about this pillow fight that these girls go on. How would you imagine? No.
How do the goose down feathers from the pillow stick on their bodies when they're not wearing anything for it to stick on?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
Well, there's also the matter of, with the way that girls talk, unless you're going for a Valley Girl sort of thing.
How
many girls do you actually know who say like every other word?
I say like a lot.
I've met a few of them, but they're not all Valley Girls. It's just something they do because they try talking hyper fast.
I do that.
This is very true,
I do
but
that
you know how
too.
fast I talk sometimes, and I don't say like every other word.
See, like, I just said like there.
You
like,
don't
yeah,
every
see,
other
like,
word,
I say like a lot. So it's because I talk really fast, so I can vouch for...
But that goes back to the
Verbal
stereotypes.
Yeah.
Stereotypes is another thing you would want to get checked.
True.
You would want to make sure
that's
that
true.
you're not just doing something with a bunch of stereotypes.
You're not having them just to check the box. Token female, right?
Unless the stereotypes is what you're going for to kind of do a parody.
Oh, yeah,
where
parodies,
where you have a stereotype on every single type of character.
Oh, the spoofs, they write themselves.
Oh, yeah.
No,
yes. That
No, I actually a fun less than 30-second tangent.
timing
Japanese
it.
people are really strange in how they do verbal pauses. Japanese people will say these really long words to fill in the gaps and then talk at like a mile a minute otherwise. As opposed to where people are talking simply a mile a minute in English and they simply add a ton of likes because that's what they do. Or
oh, it's like
ums or
Facebook,
whatever.
adding a ton of likes. I'm so funny. No.
So funny. How would I do on time, Donald? Anyway.
That was about 10 seconds, so actually good job.
Anyways, that's the last question, but I got one other thing to do before we, get into
One
the
other
rest of
thing?
the end of it.
What could it be?
One other thing. That is, suggest some unexpected roles for your opposite gender characters to fill. That said, because obviously Donald and I are male, we'll talk about guys, unexpected roles for guys. And Christina, you will talk about unexpected roles for female characters.
Okay.
Unexpected roles.
I'd say that Donald's got a very good one in his story. He talked about the guy being the nurturer.
Oh, yeah,
Now
that's right.
not necessarily unique, but that's certainly not a role you'd expect. If you see this gigantic man, which he's a gigantic dinosaur, but let's
Even compared to the other
not-
dinosaurs, he's gigantic, so that kind of works. So, some of the
If you see this gigantic man and all of a sudden he's like the cuddliest one amongst the bunch, that's not terribly
God,
expected.
I just subconsciously realized who I based that off of.
Well, that some parts of it,
Yeah,
I
some parts.
suppose.
Well, a lot of parts of it are the main character too. But
I was about to say. But that's one unexpected version for a male character. Another one that I think is seeing a guy who's not explicitly like homosexual, but working in a store that's generally designed for women to come in,
like
and
a hair
wear.
salon,
So like makeup,
or like a,
hair salon, clothing shop.
or even like
You know,
sometimes
obviously clothing
ones that are
stores-
less stereotypical, but you see more often in women, like the bartender or like the waiter, I guess.
True.
Or,
My brother was a bartender.
no, it's definitely
for
a gender
many years.
neutral thing, but like a
Right.
lot of well, I guess it's a lot of people like to imagine the hot bartender girl or whatever.
We like to think about the girls that are trying to goose their tips by, showing off their sexuality, and that's why we think of the sexy bartender kind of
Which
thing.
I'm sure
But,
Christina can
you know,
vouch
and
is
that's-
very common. No.
Well, I was gonna say, in that regard, a female bouncer.
Yeah, there's a good one. I'd love to see that. Somebody who's got a black belt, but you wouldn't expect it because she's got a pair of boobs.
Well, especially if she's only like 5'2".
That'd be great.
Especially if she's not, especially if she's not tall. Like, if she's kind of butch, then it kind of ruins
like-
that, you know?
It's like if you've got a 5'2", 87-pound bouncer.
So you basically no.
To be fair, before I got pregnant, I was 95 pounds and
Oh,
I'm 5'6".
well,
Oh my gosh. You went
it's kind
there.
of funny. Well,
You
like,
went there.
there's a running joke I have sometimes with like sometimes I work at a coffee shop that shall not be named, but sometimes there's a
Not
lot
for
of
much longer, apparently.
there's a lot of girls that work here, and sometimes they're really small and really adorable, and I often joke with them that they'd actually be really good assassins because no one would expect it would be them. They like this one girl. She was very sneaky. Like she was really small, and there'd be a lot of times where I'd look behind me, and there she was. I'd like, you make an amazing assassin. Like,
Okay, well, in that regard, one other thing that you wouldn't
Wait.
expect.
Donald, you're not supposed to be answering for the girls.
I know.
But in that regard, if you had a slightly on the heavier side woman as a ninja.
Well, just anything that's like physically active. Like that'd be true for like men too. Like a fat ninja.
Fair.
One thing that I'm glad that we're seeing more of is women in roles of power, even in writing.
CEOs type.
Well, that's what I try to do of myself too. Like, this isn't really. I'm not gonna spoil it, but basically, yeah, I've already said like there's characters in power in my story who are women, and their leadership is never questioned because they're women. Again, it might be questioned for things they do, but it's
byproduct of growing up with 3 sisters. That's my thought. Anyway.
well, I just view women as people or / dinosaurs.
Well, see, another thing that I've noticed, now this is kind of switching it up again,
Oh,
All right. It's only fair.
but if you think about a daycare or a preschool, most of the teachers you're going to
God.
see are women.
right.
Absolutely.
Or like nannies too.
I
But-
work in a kindergarten.
But some of my favorite teachers in elementary school were men.
Right.
What if you had a male preschool teacher or a male daycare?
And
teacher?
there always is like one, because you can't have, you've got to make sure that the boys are taken care of. But like I work in several kindergartens here as part of my
Nice.
job. And I see that on a daily basis, You go to this school, there's the token male teacher there. And like from being I'm not like a terribly toxic masculine kind of guy, but I'm a pretty standard male in that respect. I just think it's gross to have to deal with both genders doing all the stuff that they do as, toddlers when they can't necessarily control their bladders, or
I just think it's gross no matter who does it.
They're always
Like,
touching your,
I just,
talking-
I don't do
talking
bodily
about-
fluids. That's probably why I'm never going to have children.
I was about to say, should I chime in here with the
touching
mother's
other people's-
opinion?
touching
I might
other
cover my
people's
ears,
genitals
but
and
otherwise,
stuff like that. It's just like, but this is the thing. Unless it's your own, guys don't really like dealing with
Nope.
it much.
A lot of
that I can
guys
think
don't
of.
want to deal with it even with their own.
Well, that's true.
we don't have the.
But let's
yeah,
not worry
I
about
just,
bad parenting here. Point being, though, that there are, those reasons that women are, flocking to this because they don't care. They like dealing with people.
I'd
And that
say
actually
they
can get
some of them
away with
probably
dealing
do
with
care,
both
but yeah.
genders.
Well, and everybody hears about the stay-at-home mom.
Right.
So if you're writing, what if you were writing about a stay-at-home dad?
Well, like
the
good
mom's
family
off.
friends
Good thought.
of my family. That's redundant, but
Wow.
the woman is the business worker and the man is the stay-at-home person. So
See, that's actually how my parents were when I was little.
yeah.
And if you have that exact experience, then it's pretty easy to write into
Oh,
your
yeah.
stories. But,
If you can remember
it's-
it.
I mean, true. That said, I'm going to break my own rules here and talk about women. If you have women's doing jobs that are relatively dirty and so they wouldn't want to mess up their manicures and all
Oh,
that stuff,
okay.
like, working in a sewer,
Well, I was
for
going to say,
example,
like, being a sanitation worker.
construction worker,
boiler
sanitation,
worker,
that
yeah.
kind of thing. You don't see women in that role.
No.
That said, if you're doing it just to be jarring, that's one thing, but you've got to do justice to that character if you're going to do these.
Right.
So keep that in mind.
It's like, if
as
you're
well.
going to do it,
Listeners.
why are you doing it?
Okay, I'm sorry. We are going way over.
This still
on
isn't
time
even
on what I
close to the
expected.
longest
So let's
episode
do-
we've had, though. But yeah, we probably should.
I'm aware, and we've got edits to do, but let's go ahead and do a lightning round tipperoonies.
Yes.
Our patented tipperoonies.
Lightning round, go!
On this thorny issue. Okay, suggestions of a worthless character. If you have somebody who simply rivals the like-gendered character, so, for my stories, I have a villain faction and a hero faction, and if there's a girl on the villain side and the hero side, they generally are pitted against each other.
Ah,
But
that's
all
a
they
that's
do.
a
That's
weird.
not necessarily
That's
a
a
great
great
character.
grievance I have in writing. Like, I don't know. I think it's forced. I think men should fight men, women should fight women, men should fight women, women should fight men. It's just good guys fighting bad guys is what I think. Oh.
Exactly. Boxed into set or stereotypical roles. If you're only doing stereotypes, if it's not for some comedic purpose, then it's probably not a great
Right.
character. Doesn't mean it's worth less character, but you should try and do better.
It feels like it takes away from the
reverse-
character.
Exactly.
Absolutely. It kind of reduces them to their role as opposed to, having them excel on their own. How about reverse sexism in the other cast? They only exist to say, oh, you men have everything and we don't have anything. Gah, boo you, kind of a thing. And that's all they do.
See, the only way that works is if you have them realize later on, oh, wait, we're more alike than I thought.
Well, I think it's an interesting example.
Exactly.
In the sort of this in the movie, this is one of those movies I watched a lot because I had 3 sisters. Right, Miss Congeniality is a good example of internalized sexism. Like the woman,
Yes.
is sexist against the idea of femininity. She thinks it's weak, but she later grows to learn that no, feminine can be powerful just as anything else. Like, and Like she was like a very masculine FBI agent who was afraid to show any feminine side because she thought it was weak. And that's a really interesting example of internalized sexism. So,
Look at professional female athletes. The line they have to draw between, accentualizing their femininity with doing this thing that is viewed as, very masculine in nature.
Well, look at female
Not
wrestlers.
easy.
I don't care if it's all for show. I mean, it may be all staged,
They work hard for that.
but
They work really hard for that.
they do.
so yeah.
Anyway, another suggestion. Obviously, a silly relationship with the good guys. To draw on my experience a little bit, there are two back-to-back seasons where Power Rangers had a female villain that got into a relationship with one of the cast.
Nice.
One of them actually was a real-life deal.
Ah, yes, they wrote that in.
One of them
Nice.
actually was the actor and actress. And so they put it in the show. The other one was just a thing they did. And, if it's silly, if it's simply frivolous, then it's probably not a great reason to have the character.
I mean, it depends. If it's just an...
Now, if it actually advances the plot, that's one thing. But if it's just there as a frivolous, they're on again, off again because they're on different sides of the battle or conflict or whatever.
I mean,
that's not a
Okay,
great
to revisit
reason for including this character.
the romance novels that I both write and read.
All right.
There are some scenes where there's a guy that's hitting on this girl, and he just doesn't get why she's showing no interest until her girlfriend shows up.
Subtlety. Ooh.
Nice.
I was about to say we needed you on our episode when we were talking about romance stuff that we did.
We never done it.
Well,
didn't.
that is a lot of what I write.
Missed opportunity.
Most of mine,
Yeah,
if
nothing
it's
wrong with
not
that.
poetry, most of it's romance, and then I have one mystery.
Nice. Mysteries are fun.
Congratulations. They're fun to write, but they're kind of
Listen to our episode.
because
For
you
more
have to figure out
information,
the
listen
end,
to
too.
episode, I think it was 20, Mysteries and such. Mystery.
You better check that, but ding. Anyways, solely to account for any opposite gender staff in the lair. If they're simply there to be there, your token female, that's not a great
Right.
character. Please do something better. And if you do just about anything opposite the above, the ones we already mentioned, that's a better
Right.
choice. You don't have to even limit your character to cisgender. Particularly, don't let gender stereotypes hem in what the character is capable of.
If you're going to go with the gender stereotypes, then at least have the characters each break at least one of them visibly.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna laugh if you had said visually.
I mean, it depends how you describe
I
it.
almost did.
This one uses
I
red
could
font for
tell.
her speech.
I started to. I caught myself.
Okay.
Anyways, should your cast be large enough, have more than one in your minority.
Yeah, this is...
whether it's
Don't
a
just
race
have
thing,
the token black guy,
beliefs
have
thing,
several black guys. Or
or a
Okay.
sexual preferences.
Can I
don't
back?
let them be overgeneralized into a token. Sorry, go ahead.
Can I back up to a thought from earlier real quick with the what incidences
Sure.
should be checked with the other gender?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, dear.
If a guy is writing a pregnant character,
Oh.
What to expect when you're expecting You Are My Bible?
I don't know. I think
Not
we've got
that I've ever
experience
tried
in
I'm
this
sorry.
regard.
I'm 8 months pregnant. That's what I had to mention.
Yes. No,
All
I'm
right,
part
thanks
seahorse.
for
I
bringing
got
it
it.
up because it's
I
well
know.
worth it. And you said I'm a mutt. Jeez, you're part seahorse.
Anyway, back on track.
Anyways, yes. If sexual preferences are your thing, there's that too. And let them have different enough characters to justify their volume in the
Right.
story. You don't have two Asians that are exact carbon copies of each other just because that way you don't have a token Asian, because then that means you just have two token Asians
It basically
instead,
means
right?
you kind of still have just one token Asian that just happens to be split into two people.
It's like you at least
You're
need to
doing it. You're doing it for the purpose of
them
avoiding
with
that.
their group,
Right.
or with their family, so to speak,
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Something that allows them to be
who they
human.
are.
Yeah.
Or character. Sorry.
Someday I'll write about
that-
humans,
but that's the
and we don't have
point.
to have all these caveats.
Someday.
Oh, you still will.
Someday. You keep
Oh, yeah,
trying.
probably.
One positive thing about a patriarchal society women tend to have grudges against the system that does restrain them, and it's a natural trait that can add some depth to an otherwise bland villainess.
Well,
Screw the patriarchy!
I should mention, Christina, the reason that there are so many of these references is because we originally were going to do this for a villains episode, and then it got cut because of time.
Well,
so I kept in the tips because they're not bad tips, but that's why they're,
I don't know, I think
they're
they're
skewed
terrible.
towards
well,
this.
see, the same thing goes for if it's a matriarchal society.
Right. If you're
That's
writing a
true.
story about a bunch of ants, and then there's the worker ant that happens to be a guy, I actually had a joke one.
You sure you don't talking about bees?
Or ants or bees or whatever. I actually thought it would be kind of funny if I was writing a story about ants and it was like a battle story, and then because all the soldiers and all the workers, they're all women, they're all female, and then the male ants, literally all they do is they're just little larva-like size things that just happen to just mate with the queen constantly. But like, I thought it'd be kind of funny if there was like a joke where an ant colony is getting invaded by another ant colony, and then a soldier ant's like, "Someone protect the men and children."
Did anybody else have the Ants Go Marching song pop into their head?
Oh, from ants.
no.
From ants with
I
a
didn't.
Z.
I did.
I'm not entirely sure what you're talking
It's
about.
an old DreamWorks movie.
There's one song. This is actually a war propaganda song, if you will, that came out. I think it was World War I time. That they were
Great
talking.
War.
No, but it was talking about sending the girls over there. They've earned the lyrics are they've earned the right to fight. So let's send the girls over there. Anyway.
In any case, the point seems to be whoever has the most power in the society, the opposite gender is who's going to come
They're
out.
going to buck against it a little
Right.
bit.
Yes.
And, even that is more than just having them
Yes.
there. Having them present to give you the opposite
It gives them some
chromosome,
depth.
Which is
it
why
gives
I
them
brought
some
it up.
depth. So
This last one, we talked a lot about checking stuff and what not to write. But here you go. Remember that opposite gender characters are inherently difficult
Yes.
to write because you aren't,
I
Don't be
suppose,
afraid
I
to
know.
ask your respective friends about how realistic their reactions or choices
yes,
are.
as we've discussed verbatim quite often. But yeah.
Ad nauseum is the word
What?
I'm looking for.
Why don't you publish a book?
Now with all of that, well, there's a reason I always check yours before you do. Anyways, how can people get a hold of us?
Yes, okay, that's it. That was our segment. That was our episode on gender tokenism or avoiding it and such, and also a little bit about race too and other such.
Well, tokenism in general, it's not a good thing.
Yep.
So, try not to do that,
Yep,
guys.
please,
And
yes, and everyone.
Thank you.
Or in between, whatever you may be.
Excuse me, I'm a wolf
So-
trapped in a human's body, and I find this
I actually
incredibly
had a friend
be,
tell me that
dang.
once.
I said whatever you may be. Grief, get
Whatever.
over it. How can people get a hold of us?
dehumanizing.
I did actually have a friend once tell me that he was a wolf in a human's body.
I see why you say you had a friend.
Oh my god.
It's actually the same friend who said that he was pansexual.
He seems like a really interesting guy. Anyways. Or wolf, I'm sorry.
So, Donald, how can people get a hold
Please
of us?
download the
Time
Witwit
free.
on iTunes. Give us a like and review. Just basically, if you got any tips or if you got anything you want to send to our way, like any reviews, any feedback, any questions, specify which one of us you're talking to. Of course, send us an email at matthd@matthewdonaldcreator.com. You can use your own email system or the contact page on the website matthewdonaldcreator.com.
Quick mention, if you want us to say what you're asking on air, please let
Yes,
us know.
we will
We'll
happily read it.
them if we get those.
Yeah.
Also, if you have prompts for us, if you have topics you'd like to hear us talk about, please send those our way as well. We really like having that.
It's
kind of
pretty
feedback,
great.
too. But we also have social media stuff going up. So how do you do that? How do you follow us there?
On and that's the show, I guess. At Facebook, Matthew Don Creator, or Twitter at MatthewDon64, as well as Instagram, MatthewDon64. Why 64? It just is, okay? It's none of your business. Leave me alone.
Or listen to the other episodes and you'll find out.
Oh yeah, there's never a concise
Well, I mean-
reason.
There's never one express
I really hope
reason.
we
That's
eventually
part
get
of
to
the
the
problem.
episode 64, and that... I don't know what we'll do for that one.
I'm sure you will find a way.
Well, we're on
just so you can do
27
it.
now, or 28 or
We're almost
whatever, so
halfway
we'll
there.
see how it goes. But
Sorry, what were you
anyway,
saying, Christina?
I'm sure you.
We're
I'm
almost
sure you
halfway
will
there.
find a way.
Oh, yeah.
28, so we are halfway there. pretty
Almost.
much. On the
Anyways,
nose.
well, that concludes our episode
Well,
on...
No, it's 32.
You're 4
It's
away
32.
from
on
halfway.
all the SJW nonsense that's
Yeah,
plaguing
we-
our society, that's leftist crap. No.
SJW nonsense? What?
Exactly, it's nonsense.
I'm missing that. I'm missing all
Good.
of that. Do we have a YouTube channel yet, Donald? You were talking about it.
No, I'm lazy.
Well, when it comes out, like and subscribe to the channel for new additional content.
Yes,
on the Witwit.
exactly. I'm really, really into my job, guys.
You are so good at
I'm
your
so
job.
professional.
Well, he did just publish a book, so it's not like we can't deny that.
I'm
but
so
anyway,
professional.
thanks very much, Christina
Yes,
Franklin,
thank
for
you very
joining
much
us
for
on the
coming,
show.
Miss
Hope you
Franklin.
had fun. We certainly had fun having you.
Glad to be here.
Well, that's good. Well, thank you for joining us. All right, until next time.
It's almost like old times, but anyway.
I'm Matt Donald.
I'm Matt David, and thanks Christina Franklin as well for her being here.
Keep on
You
writing.
want to say something, Christina?
And yeah.
Yeah, keep those pencils going, listener. Keep those
Keep
pencils
writing-
going, listeners.
Keep writing and let the inspiration take over.
Yeah.
Keep the delete key close to hand if something goes horribly wrong. Anyway,
But wait until
until
you're
next
done.
time, we'll come back with more.
Whole part of my life, I can use the delete key now.
Oh, and since this is the December episode, I guess we should say happy holidays.
Happy holidays from the
whatever holiday
Ritwit,
you celebrate.
everyone.
See
And
you
a happy
in-
new
they'll-
year. We'll
they'll
see you in
the new year?
2019.
Yep.
Well, theoretically, at some point.
Here.
I mean, we got to get the next annual Witties
Right,
done,
exactly.
right?
Next
Oh, wait,
episode
that's
should hopefully be
February.
the Witties. But until then, here's to allows.
Wait, no, that's February, isn't
What?
it? Isn't
No,
that
it's
February?
January.
Not January? What?
Get ready for the
February
Witties,
last year,
David.
didn't we? This year. Oh my god, I am not ready for this at all, Donald.
Oh,
but anyway,
you
thank
are
you so
not
much for our guest
prepared.
host. Thanks, listeners, for putting up with our drivel. And we'll see you next time on The Ritwit, the podcast for us two twits, well, three today, talk about ridding.
Yes.
Until next time.
Peace.
The Ritwit.